Imagine skipping meals for weeks. Like, just saving every spare penny you can scrape together.
Right.
And you're doing this just to build a heavily fortified, completely burglar-proof and fire-proof vault in Rhode Island.
Which already sounds intense.
Exactly. But you aren't protecting gold bars. You aren't hiding state secrets. You're protecting a 400-year-old instruction manual on how to, like, pull a coin from behind someone's ear. Welcome to today's deep dive.
It really sounds absurd when you frame it that way.
It totally does.
But that level of intense, irrational devotion is exactly what we're exploring today.
Yeah, so for you out there listening, the learner who loves uncovering these hidden obsessive worlds, we are opening a very specific time capsule today.
A fascinating one.
Truly. We have this stack of dispatches from a 1948 magazine called The Linking Ring.
Which is the official publication for the International Brotherhood of Magicians.
Right, but we're not looking at massive, shadowy stages with smoke and, vanishing elephants today.
No, not at all.
We're zooming way, way in on this hyper-local microcosm of post-war American life, specifically the William E. Baker Ring No. 44 of Rhode Island.
These monthly meeting notes are just a phenomenal source.
They really are.
Because they reveal the hidden architecture of a subculture. You expect to read about polished illusions and glamorous assistants.
Yeah.
But instead, you find a world driven by community, local politics, and a desperate, deeply human need for shared wonder right after the Second World War.
So throw out your expectations of Gothic wizards in top hats.
Totally.
In Ring 44, the majestic top hat is replaced by a guy wearing a grass skirt over his military boots.
Which is quite the visual.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Our mission today is to figure out exactly how and why ordinary people, credit managers, plumbers, pilots, felt so compelled to gather in a basement once a month just to deceive each other.
And to understand the psychological mechanics of why this specific group functioned the way it did too.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the setting itself, because you really have to picture the room before you can understand the people in it.
Absolutely. The space dictates the vibe.
Right. So the heart of Ring 44's gatherings was this place called Baker's Miniature Theater, located on Observatory Avenue in North Providence.
It's a very unassuming location.
Very. And to me, the atmosphere they describe in these dispatches sounds less like a mystical enclave and more like a quirky 1940s sitcom.
Oh, completely.
It was like a local bowling league, but just with far more trapdoors.
The contrast there is brilliant. They use these incredibly formal, serious titles.
Oh yeah, like president and secretary.
Right, and they even had a master of entertainment.
Wow.
But the actual execution of the meetings was just beautifully chaotic. And we have to remember, the magic they were performing was incredibly difficult to pull off in that environment.
Right, because we aren't just talking about picking a card.
Yeah.
The sources mention them performing illusions like giant Chinese sticks or milk penetrations. Now, to a layperson, milk penetration sounds bizarre.
Oh, off-putting, yeah.
But we're talking about an illusion where liquid visually appears to pass straight through solid glass, right?
Exactly. The mechanics of a milk penetration trick require a highly specialized, dual-layered pitcher.
Okay.
So the liquid is secretly retained between two walls of glass or plastic, making it look like the central volume is just draining out through a solid bottom.
That sounds tricky.
It is. Now, doing that on a grand stage with perfect lighting where the audience is far away is one thing.
Right, you have distance on your side.
Doing it flawlessly in a cramped, damp basement with your buddies sitting 2 feet away.
Oh, man.
Buddies who are actively scrutinizing your angles and trying to catch you, that requires infinitely more technical precision.
It's a tough crowd. And they weren't just scrutinizing the mechanics either. They were fully committing to the bit, like their theme nights.
Oh, the theme nights are incredible.
In the November 1947 issue, they're reporting on a recent meeting, and there's a dispatch about a South Pacific night.
Yes.
The text literally says they were taken in fancy to a mythical island. Leading the charge is this guy named Headman Chesty Roscam.
And this is where the historical context slams right into the absurdity of the hobby. Look at what Chesty Roscam was wearing.
Right. Chesty is up there performing in GI boots, long underwear, and a grass skirt.
Such a specific outfit.
He's alongside a witch doctor Lamond and someone named Madame Murney who's doing a hula dance. The image of those heavy, scuffed military combat boots sticking out underneath a grass skirt is permanently burned into my brain.
But think about the date. This is 1948.
Okay.
A massive percentage of these men literally just took off those exact GI boots in a theater of war in Europe or the Pacific.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, they came home to a complicated, rapidly shifting economy and the unspoken trauma of a global conflict.
All right, the post-war reality.
Exactly. And now they are putting those boots back on with long underwear and grass skirts just to get a laugh in a basement in Rhode Island. Sociologically, these magic rings served as the ultimate post-war third places.
But wait, let me push back on that a bit. When you say third place, like a community center outside of work and home, isn't that romanticizing it a little?
How do you mean?
Well, they call themselves the Brotherhood of Magicians. It sounds less like a wholesome, inclusive community center and more like a highly exclusive frat house built entirely on gatekeeping.
That's a totally fair critique, and it was certainly exclusive.
Right.
But the function of that exclusivity is what matters here. A local pub or a bowling alley is a third place, sure. But a magic ring required a highly disciplined craft to enter.
So you had to earn your way in.
Exactly. It wasn't just a boys' club for the sake of it. The shared secret was the catalyst for collective play.
Okay, I see.
When Chesty Roscom puts on that absurd outfit, he is leaving the gravity of the 1940s at the door. The strict rules of the Brotherhood provided a safe, structured environment for grown men to engage in pure, unfiltered escapism.
That makes a lot of sense. And that escapism occasionally spilled out of the basement, too. My favorite detail from the sources is their massive August picnic.
Oh, the Lincoln Woods picnic.
Yes. They took 100 magicians and their families to Lincoln Woods for a summer outing. They had horseshoe tournaments, softball, basket lunches.
Sounds lovely.
It does. But the reporter dryly notes in the dispatch, and this is a direct quote, that the wild rabbits went into hiding when the magicians invaded the park.
That is just hilarious.
You just know 100 guys who specialize in pulling rabbits out of hats showed up, and the local ecosystem was like, nope, we are out of here.
It's a very funny visual, but it also highlights a massive logistical problem.
Would you?
When you get 100 highly creative, eccentric, spotlight-seeking performers in a single organization, it's a recipe for total collapse.
Oh, for sure. Which brings us to the real question here. How does this not just implode into a giant ego fest?
Right.
For this collective escapism to survive, they desperately needed an anchor, someone who was the absolute antithesis of a spotlight-seeking magician. Enter Doris Burgeon.
Doris is easily one of the most fascinating figures in this entire archive.
So, in the spring of 1948, she makes history. She is elected to lead Ring 44, making her the first Madam President.
A huge deal at the time.
The dispatches explicitly highlight that she was the only female president of a non-magician magic organization at the time. In this heavily patriarchal brotherhood we just talked about, she's the one running the show.
Her rise to power is the ultimate story of quiet, indispensable competence.
How so?
Well, she originally joined the ring around 1938 because her husband, Robert, was the secretary. But when the war broke out, Robert deployed with the Navy. So Doris just stepped in to keep the notes.
She just kept the engine running. And she didn't stop there. Over the years, she added treasurer to her plate when the previous guy couldn't handle it. Then she became vice president and finally Madam President.
Incredible progression.
And the wild part is, she was doing all of this while working a demanding day job as a credit manager at a major Providence department store.
What's fascinating here is how the psychology of her day job perfectly mirrors her role in the Magic Club.
Oh, that's an interesting point.
As a credit manager in 1948, her entire job is assessing risk, evaluating who can be trusted, and guarding sensitive financial information.
Wow, yeah.
At the department store, the sales girls were constantly pressuring her, trying to wheedle the secrets of the magic tricks out of her.
I bet.
But she adamantly refused to give them up. She treated the illusions with the exact same ironclad confidentiality as a bank ledger.
But here is where the sources really threw me, and I have to ask why someone would do this. The dispatches explicitly state that Doris rarely performs publicly. She assists her stepfather-in-law, the great Bill Baker, but she doesn't do her own acts because she fears, quote, spoiling the tricks.
Right.
Wait. So the person running this entire organization of performers doesn't actually want to perform.
Yeah.
Why dedicate your life, your free time, and all your administrative energy to a magic club if you aren't seeking the spotlight?
Because she understands the vital distinction between the art of magic and the infrastructure of magic.
Okay, unpack that for me.
She loves the craft, The sources note she is privately practicing to master the linking rings and fanning cards, and those are no joke.
They sound difficult.
Extremely. Fanning cards requires immense manual dexterity to control a deck like it's a living organism, and linking rings requires spatial manipulation to make solid steel seem permeable.
Wow.
She respects the difficulty, but her primary role isn't on stage.
So Doris isn't just a curator. She's acting almost like the cryptographic key in a blockchain.
That's a great analogy.
The entire value of this community is built on secrecy. If she leaks those secrets to her coworkers, the currency of the club devalues to zero. Her silence is the infrastructure that allows the guys in grass skirts to have a club at all.
That is a perfect way to look at it. The people who are most critical to the survival of an art form are rarely the ones taking the bow.
So true.
One of her major pet projects as president wasn't putting on a big show. It was organizing Ring 44 to send food and care packages to needy brother magicians overseas whose lives had been devastated by the war.
That is so deeply compassionate.
She understood that if you don't care for the human beings holding the knowledge, the art form dies with them.
She is the localized gravity, keeping everyone from flying off into space.
Exactly.
But while Doris was busy keeping the local gears turning, someone else in Ring 44 was looking at a much, much longer timeline. Because this little basement theater didn't just foster local hobbyists, it incubated international heavyweights.
Yes, and this is where we get into the story of a guy named Smith.
Which is exactly how the linking ring profiles H. Adrian Smith. Yes. Adrian Smith is a local Providence boy who goes on to become the international president of the entire IBM. But his origin story is so relatable.
It really is.
As a teenager, he signs up for an amateur night at a theater in Pawtucket. He walks out onto the stage with a totally homemade magic kit, like organ pipes made by a local plumber, coat linings dyed blue by his mother.
Very DIY.
And he just gets mercilessly heckled right off the stage.
But the crucial twist is who is doing the heckling.
Right. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
The loudest guy in the audience yelling louder, louder,
Yeah.
was John Percival.
A well-known semi-professional magician.
He heckles this kid into the ground, but then surprisingly takes Smith under his wing.
A bizarre way to start a mentorship.
I know. He becomes his mentor and tells him, it's not what you do that's so important, but how you do it.
And that mentorship sparked an obsession that went far beyond learning a few card tricks. Smith wanted to understand the absolute deepest roots of the craft.
He really did.
When he eventually attended Brown University, the sources note he would skip college lunches for weeks at a time just to save enough money to buy rare magic books.
And this brings us back to our opening hook. Because skipping lunch for a book is one thing, but Smith's obsession escalates to a level that is almost terrifying.
Oh, it becomes a monumental undertaking.
He starts acquiring entire libraries from older magicians, guys like Peter Grafe, Dr. Milton Bridges. He amasses over 6,000 rare items.
6,000.
And to protect them, he builds a custom, fireproof, and burglar-proof library building in Rhode Island. It was the only specially built conjuring library in the country.
Amazing.
He's keeping texts from 1562 and 1584 locked in a safe. But, I mean, why go to these extremes to save a 400-year-old book on parlor tricks? We aren't talking about the Magna Carta here.
But to Smith, he essentially was protecting the Magna Carta of human perception.
Oh, I like that.
Magic isn't just tricks. It is the applied history of cognitive psychology. If you look at a text from 1584, like Reginald Scott's Discovery of Witchcraft.
Wait, a book on witchcraft?
Yes, but it wasn't published for entertainment. It was written to prove that accused witches weren't using supernatural powers.
Really?
Yeah, they were just using early science and sleight of hand. That book literally saved lives from the gallows.
Oh, wow. I had no idea.
So by preserving it, Smith wasn't hoarding a hobby. He was preserving the intellectual history of rationality triumphing over superstition.
That is incredible context.
Yeah.
He's recognizing that the guy pulling a rabbit out of a hat is actually participating in a 400-year-old tradition of hacking the human brain.
Precisely. He even wrote textbooks on mnemonics, basically memory hacking. He proves that a local club like Ring 44 can incubate globally significant historical work.
And yet what makes Smith so enduring is that he never lost his sense of play.
No, not at all.
He is still deeply weird. Here's this highly respected historian, the international president, a guy with a fireproof vault of antiquities.
Right.
And the sources note that he completely confounded the members of the Providence Ring by doing a routine of card tricks with a large paper bag pulled completely over his head.
It encapsulates the duality of a great magician perfectly.
It really does.
You must possess the rigorous discipline of an academic historian, combined with the sheer, unadulterated audacity to put a paper bag over your head in public.
It's the absolute highest brow and the lowest brow colliding in one person. But what's fascinating is that while Smith was preserving 4 centuries of secrets in a vault, the rest of the ring was very much living in the present, chaotic moment of 1948.
Very much so.
And to really understand them, we have to look at what they actually did when the tricks stopped.
Because the real heart of the sources isn't found in the stage directions. It's found in the kitchen.
Exactly. Let's look at the November meeting. They invite County Commissioner-elect Charles Freitz to be their guest.
Right.
Now, you'd think a magician's meeting would feature someone performing the walk-through ribbon. You know, that incredible illusion where a volunteer stands on stage and a solid ribbon ostensibly slices completely through their midsection without cutting them.
Which, again, relies on excruciatingly precise spatial mechanics and misdirection.
Right. But Freitz doesn't do that. He doesn't want to upstage anyone.
So what does he do?
He just stands up and hands out leftover cigars from his political campaign.
Of course he does.
And he literally promises the Magic Club members, quote, a larger portion of beans if they ever get arrested for speeding in his county.
That is amazing.
It's just spectacular, blatant 1940s local politics smack in the middle of a magic show. And we're being totally impartial here. It's just so funny to see a politician offering extra jail beans in exchange for goodwill.
It's such a specific era of Americana. Or consider the visit from John Calvert.
Oh, right. Tell us about him.
He was a major professional magician who flew his own new airplane into town to visit the ring, and on the flight back, he just casually surrenders the controls of the aircraft to a local member, Fred Foshee.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Oh, wow.
Why? Because Fred had given up an aviation career for magic.
Hey, I know you gave up flying to do card tricks in the basement, want to fly my plane. It's so wildly casual. And grounding all of this high-flying, cigar-smoking energy are the matriarchs in the kitchen.
The unsung heroes.
Absolutely. We have Mrs. Baker, the great Bill Baker's wife, and Mrs. Stubbs, who is Madam President Doris Bergen's mother.
Right.
The reports constantly highlight them taking over after the illusions are done to provide massive spreads. Sandwiches, cake, and coffee. There's even a whole paragraph dedicated to coffee brewed in a brand new urn that Commissioner Freitz promised to gold plate.
A gold-plated coffee urn for a basement magic club.
So what does this all mean? When you strip it all away, this sounds less like a magical enclave and more like an excuse to eat cake and talk local politics.
The actual magic tricks almost seem secondary to the gossip, the cigars, and the sandwiches.
Yes.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this brings us to the real psychological aha moment of the entire deep dive.
Which is?
The paradox of Ring 24 is that humans actually crave artificial barriers. We think we want total inclusion and open doors. But giving a group a secret handshake, even a silly manufactured one like learning a milk penetration trick, tricks our evolutionary psychology into forming immediate, deeply bonded tribes.
Wow. So the magic trick was never the actual point.
No, the boundary it created against the outside world was the point. The trick was the barrier to entry that ensured everyone in that room had taken an oath and shared a specific, slightly absurd passion.
That makes total sense.
But once you were physically inside Baker's miniature theater, the illusion served its purpose. The hobby stepped aside for profound human connection.
Yeah?
Whether it was the solemnity of a candle ceremony for a deceased member or the absolute silliness of a hula dance in GI boots, they were constructing a family of choice.
Which is the real takeaway for you listening today. It's about finding your own Ring 44.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter if your hyper-niche passion is 16th century books or coding or knitting or restoring old cars. The activity is ultimately just the excuse to get in the room together, build a boundary against the chaos of the outside world, and eat sandwiches.
The tricks fade, but the community endures.
So let's bring it all together. Today we opened a time capsule and took a deep dive into 1948 with Rhode Island's William E. Baker Ring number 44.
What a journey.
We saw the chaotic joy of post-war guys performing in grass skirts just to shake off the weight of the era. We saw the vital, steadfast leadership of Madam President Doris Bergen,
who proved that the person guarding the secrets is often more important than the person on the stage.
Exactly. We saw how that exact same small-town room could incubate the intense, scholarly obsession of H. Adrian Smith, who recognized that preserving magic was actually about preserving the history of human perception.
And finally, we saw how all of that grand illusion grounded back down to leftover campaign cigars, camaraderie, and coffee from a gold-plated urn.
It really forces you to look at your own life. Think about it. What is your secret society? What is that artificial barrier you've built with a quirky, dedicated group of people that makes you feel like you truly belong?
It does leave us with one very provocative thought to mull over, though.
Oh,
Especially when we look at how the world has shifted since 1948. Back then, the entire allure of Ring 44 relied heavily on extreme physical secrecy.
right. The gatekeeping was geographical.
Yes, you had to physically show up to that room in North Providence, swear an oath, and sit in the basement to know how the trick was done.
You had to be there.
But in our modern era, every single one of those carefully guarded secrets, the linking rings, the walkthrough ribbon, the milk pitchers, is just a quick internet search away.
Oh, true.
We live in an age of total immediate information access. So, have we lost the ability to build this kind of deep, localized, mysterious community?
That's a great question.
How do we recreate the profound magic of Baker's miniature theater, that intense bond of shared discovery, when there are no more secrets left to keep?
Something to think about the next time you Google a secret. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep looking for the magic in your own neighborhood.